The room was dark, late enough that the city outside had gone quiet, early enough that sleep still hadn't come for him. Neville was lying on his back, eyes open, and I could tell, the way you can always tell, that he was not resting. He was working, straining, running the same scene over and over in his mind. The ship, the harbor, his mother's house in Barbados, trying to feel his way towards something he could not afford, arguing with the ceiling as if the ceiling were reality itself. I sat down beside him and I said, "Stop, not like that. Before you close your eyes tonight, you are going to say 3 words, and you are going to keep saying them, not once, not as a wish, not as a hope thrown up into the dark. You are going to keep saying them until they stop being words in your mouth and become the ground you are standing on." He looked at me the way every serious student looks at a teacher in that moment, half doubt, half hunger. And I watched him say those 3 words in the dark until his voice went quiet, until the striving in him finally stopped, until what was left was only the words themselves, breathing him rather than him breathing them. And weeks later, Neville sailed to Barbados, on a ship he had no money to board. That is not a story I am telling you to impress you. I am telling you because I watched it happen, and because those same 3 words are the reason you are here tonight, whether you know it yet or not. I want to tell you something about the next few days of your life, and I want you to let me say it before you decide whether or not to believe me. Something is going to arrive to test you. It always does, and it will not care whether you're ready. It might be a number on a screen that isn't what you hoped for. It might be a call that doesn't come when you thought it would, a message left on read, a person who says they'll be there and isn't. Small things, ordinary disappointments, the kind that used to be able to reach all the way down into you and pull the floor out, and the old you would have spiraled. You know this about yourself. You don't need me to describe it. You've lived it enough times, the tightening in the chest, the replaying, the bargaining with a God you weren't sure was listening. But not this time. This time you're going to feel almost nothing. You're going to stand in that exact moment, the one that used to undo you, and you will simply be still, unmoved. Not because you talked yourself into calm, but because something underneath you will have already changed before the moment even arrives. Tonight, I am going to give you the 3 words that make you that. And by the end of this, you will understand exactly why they work. Not as a hope, not as a technique, but as a law that has never once failed to operate, in Neville's life or in mine, or in the life of anyone who has ever said them and meant them. I know why you're here. I want you to know that I know, because most teachers skip this part, and it's the most important part. You've been imagining, I can see it. You have been faithful, more faithful than you probably give yourself credit for. Night after night, you've closed your eyes and tried to build the picture, tried to feel the thing you want. That is not the problem. The problem is how you've been doing it. You have been imagining like a man standing outside a locked door, knocking, describing to whoever might be on the other side what he needs, hoping someone with more authority than him will hear the request and grant it. I want this. I hope for this. Please, let this come. That is the posture you have been in, and I need you to hear something clearly, because it will change how you spend tonight. Every time you say, I want, you are also saying, underneath it, I do not have. Every time you say, I hope, you are confessing, in the same breath, it is not yet mine. You have been telling reality what you desire, instead of speaking from the room you already live in. And the harder you've tried, the more sincerely, the more desperately you have begged, the more deeply you have carved the absence into your own subconscious. Trying harder at begging does not get you through the door. It only convinces the door that you belong on the outside of it. I know something else too, something you have never said out loud, not to a friend, not even fully to yourself in the quiet of your own mind. It is the fear underneath the wanting. It is not only, will this come? It is quieter than that, and colder. It is the fear that even if it comes, even if the thing arrives exactly as you pictured it, you will not be the kind of person who gets to keep it. That somehow you will fumble it, or it will be taken, or you will wake up one day and discover it was never really yours to hold. I want you to exhale right now, because I am about to show you that this fear, real as it feels, is standing on a foundation that isn't even true. And once you see the foundation clearly, the fear has nowhere left to stand. Let me take you back, because this is where the whole thing becomes plain. Neville was young, and he was poor, in the real sense of the word. Not romantically poor, not poor in a story that ends well 3 paragraphs later, but poor in the way that keeps a man awake, doing arithmetic he already knows the answer to. He wanted, more than almost anything, to go home, to see his family in Barbados, and he did not have the money for the passage, not close to it. He came to me with it, the way people always come to teachers with the thing that seems impossible, half asking for permission to hope, half asking me to confirm that hoping was foolish. And I did not tell him to believe he could afford it. I did not tell him to hope harder, or to pray more sincerely, or to be patient and wait for circumstances to align. I told him something else entirely. I said, "You are in Barbados, not you will go, not someday, not if you save enough, or if the right door opens. You are in Barbados, right now. Tonight, when you close your eyes, you are not a man in New York wishing for a ship. You are a man already home, walking the warm streets, hearing the voices of the people who raised him, feeling the particular weight of that air on his skin. Sleep as that man. Refuse, refuse the evidence of your senses, which insist you are still in a cold room with an empty pocket. The senses only report what has already been assumed. They do not get a vote on what is being assumed right now." Neville kept trying to feel his way toward Barbados. Every night, straining, working, trying to build enough emotional momentum to somehow cross the distance between where he was and where he wanted to be. And I stopped him, because that is precisely the mistake. You do not go to a state. You occupy it. There is no traveling required, because in consciousness, distance does not exist the way it exists on a map. There is only here and not here, only assumed and not assumed. You do not gradually approach the feeling of the wish fulfilled the way you approach a destination on a road. You either are in the end or you are not. And the moment you decide you are, the road behind you, the striving, the straining, the bargaining, simply falls away because it was never necessary in the first place. That is what you have been doing wrong. Not failing at the technique, you have been traveling toward a life. And I am telling you tonight, the way I told him then, stop traveling. Lie down inside it. And Neville reported, more than once, in his own words across his own lectures, that within weeks he sailed. On an offer he could not have engineered, could not have predicted, could not have manufactured through effort. The outer circumstance arranged itself to match what had already been settled within. That is not a fairy tale ending tacked onto a nice story. That is the law, doing precisely what it always does, without exception, the moment the inner argument is finished. Now I want to give you the thing itself, the 3 words, I am he. Say them again in your mind right now, slowly, I am He. Here is the mechanism, and I want you to understand it completely, because understanding is what will let you use this tonight without doubting it at 2 in the morning. Every single state you occupy, every mood, every identity, every version of yourself that shows up in a day is prefaced by 2 words, whether you say them out loud or not. I am. That is the creative power itself, speaking through you, every time you open your mouth or even think a thought about yourself. Whatever follows I am is the seed you are planting, and the field will grow exactly what was planted, nothing more, nothing less, nothing different. And listen to what most people plant, all day, without even noticing they're doing it. I am tired. I am behind. I am broke. I am waiting. I am always the one this happens to. Each of those is a full, complete act of creation, spoken carelessly, believed instantly, and harvested faithfully by a universe that does not evaluate whether you meant it. It simply responds to what was declared. He is the one who already has it. Not the version of you hoping to get there, not the version of you working toward becoming him. He is the man who has already arrived, already has the money, already has the love, already has the position, already has the peace. And when you say, I am he, you are not describing a future event. You are collapsing the distance between where you stand and where he stands, because in truth there was never any distance at all, only a story you had been told and had been telling yourself that said otherwise. Spoken once, in the middle of the day, with the reasoning mind fully alert and ready to argue back, those 3 words might do very little. The reasoning mind will interrupt. It will say, that's not true. Look at your bank account. Look at your circumstances. Don't be foolish. But spoken at the threshold of sleep, right there in that soft, drifting moment where the analyzing mind starts to let go, those 3 words bypass the argument entirely. There is no lawyer standing at that door. There is only feeling, and feeling at that hour walks straight through into the deeper mind unchallenged. Feeling is the secret. Neville said that plainly, without decoration, because it needed none. And he said something else, just as plainly, that between feeling and reason, in every conflict, feeling wins. Always, not sometimes, always. And sleep? Sleep is the door through which we pass consciously into the subconscious. That is not poetry. That is a precise, operational description of what happens in your mind and body every single night, whether you use it deliberately or squander it. You are going to pass through that door tonight regardless. The only question is what you carry through it. Most people carry the day's residue, the argument with the coworker, the worry about the bill, the replaying of the disappointment. And so the subconscious, which does not distinguish between what you meant and what you felt, faithfully sets to work reproducing exactly that tomorrow. You are going to carry something else through tonight. You are going to carry 3 words, I am he, said until they slur, until they stop being effort and start being simply what is true. Let me give you the line I want to live in you long after this video ends, because I am going to come back to it again and again tonight, on purpose, because a truth spoken once is a suggestion, and a truth spoken 10 times starts to become identity. You are not going to become him. You are him. Say it until reality catches up. Before I go further, I want to take something off your shoulders, because I think you've been carrying a weight that was never yours to carry. If your results with this, with imagining, with affirming, with everything you've tried up until now, have felt inconsistent, patchy, here one week and gone the next, I want you to hear me clearly. It was never you failing. It was never that you don't have what it takes, or that the law doesn't work for people like you, or that you're somehow the exception to something that works for everyone else. The routine you were using was simply incomplete. That's all. And I want that to land as relief, not as another diagnosis, because it is relief. It means there was never anything wrong with you. Here is the full nightly movement, laid out plainly, because most people, without knowing it, only ever do one piece of this, and then wonder why the results feel unreliable. First, revision. Before you can lie down as the man who already has it, you have to clear the day that told you otherwise. Every disturbing moment, every small failure, every sharp word, left unrevised, it goes with you into sleep and gets planted right alongside whatever else you're trying to plant that night, and it competes. Second, correcting your inner speech. The private conversations you have with yourself, the ones nobody else hears, the justifications and complaints and quiet dreads, these have to be caught and changed, because they are rehearsals for tomorrow, running on a loop all day long, whether you're paying attention or not. Third, building one precise scene. Not a vague wish, not a general sense of better, but one small, specific, sensory moment that implies the whole thing is already true. Fourth, actually falling asleep inside that state, letting the scene dissolve into feeling, and the feeling carry you across the threshold. Most people do one of these four, maybe two, on a good night. And then they conclude the law is unreliable, when in truth, they were only ever using a quarter of it. I've written something to give you the piece most people skip entirely. The first piece, revision, because without it, everything else you build at night gets undone by the day you never cleared. It's a short, free guide, and I called it Rewrite Tonight. It walks you through a complete 3-minute pre-sleep revision. How to choose the 3 moments from your day that are quietly disturbing your sleep without your realizing it. How to revise each one so the subconscious carries a clean record into the night instead of the day's noise. And how to actually feel the clearing happen so that everything else, the scene, the 3 words, all of it, has clean ground to land on. It's free, it's immediate. It is the first link in the description below this video. Open it tonight, before you lie down, and use it as the first movement of everything else I'm about to give you. Or, if you'd rather, comment the single word, reset, just like that, and I will point you to it myself. And I want you to understand what commenting that word actually is. It is not a comment, it is a small declaration that you are done being someone who begs at a locked door and you are ready to lie down inside the room you have wanted for so long. There is also a fuller version for those of you who want to go further once you've felt what the free guide does. It's a complete 7-night guided path, 4 parts, called the Transfer Protocol, and it's $27 through that same link. But I want to be honest with you the way I would be honest with Neville. Start with the free guide tonight. That is genuinely all you need to feel the shift I am describing to you right now. No pressure beyond that. Just the truth of what's available so you can choose with clear eyes. Now, something is going to happen the moment you try this tonight. I want to prepare you for it, because if I don't, you might mistake it for failure, when it is actually the opposite. You are going to lie down, you are going to say, I am he, and somewhere in you, a voice is going to say, that's not true. Look at your life. Look at what's actually in front of you. That's a lie. I want you to hear something, and I want you to hear it the way you'd hear a fact, not an opinion. That resistance is not evidence the words are false. It is proof that you have reached the border. It is the sound of the old identity, the one that has run your life up until now. noticing that an intruder has arrived at its gate. The law does not care what your reasoning mind thinks about the words. The law cares what you feel while saying them, especially at that threshold hour where feeling, not reason, is doing the writing. Reason's objection is simply noise, the kind of noise you are meant to sleep straight through, not engage with, not argue against, not try to logically dismantle. You do not win an argument with the old self by debating it. You win by ignoring it so completely that it eventually goes quiet from lack of attention. There is a man Neville spoke of, a man who found himself unable to imagine an income beyond $600 a month, not because life had truly capped him there, because he had capped himself there in the quiet architecture of his own self-concept so thoroughly that every time he tried to picture more, some part of him objected, said, "That's not realistic. That's not who I am. That's not what happens to people like me." He was not short on ambition. He was short on permission, the permission that only comes from believing, in feeling, that a larger version of himself was already the truth. And the way through was not to work harder at the current level, not to strategize his way past the ceiling with more effort inside the old identity. It was to assume the feeling of the larger sum as already his, not someday his, not soon to be his, already his, and to carry that feeling with the same ordinary confidence he carried the feeling of his current, familiar income. Once he did that, once the assumption, not the arithmetic, changed, the ceiling that had held for so long simply stopped holding, not because circumstances rearranged themselves out of kindness, because the self that had been capping the number was no longer the self doing the imagining. So when "I am he" feels like a lie to you tonight, I want you to do the opposite of what feels natural. Do not argue with it. Do not build a case for why it might be true. Simply say it slower. Let the words lose their sharpness. Let them become almost boring to you. A plain, unremarkable fact, the way "I am tired" or "I am hungry" is unremarkable. Nothing to defend, nothing to prove, just so. Boring is not failure. Boring is what it feels like right before a thing becomes done. There is a second truth sitting just underneath the first one, and I want to walk into it with you the way you'd walk into a room you didn't know was there. You have been waiting. I know you have. Everyone in your position waits. It's the most natural posture in the world when you want something you don't yet see. But I want you to reconsider what the waiting actually is. It is not the universe deliberating over whether you deserve the thing. It is not fate deciding on its own timeline whether to be generous with you. The delay you have been enduring is not caused by anything outside you at all. Neville said it as plainly as it can be said. Man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness. Read that again in your mind. Not one cause among several. His chief delusion. The central mistake that keeps a person circling the same disappointment for years without understanding why. We look everywhere but at the one place the cause actually lives, our own assumed state, running quietly, hour after hour, producing exactly what it is. Neville did not wait for money to appear before he stopped being the man without the passage. He stopped being that man first. He assumed the identity of the man already arrived, already home, already among his family, and only then did the outer circumstance rearrange itself to catch up with what had already been decided within. The order matters enormously. Not wait for evidence, then believe. Believe, occupy the state, and then watch as the evidence has no choice but to follow. Because evidence is simply the world's way of agreeing with an assumption that has already been fully felt as true. So it is not that the thing is refusing to come to you. It is waiting, patiently, faithfully, exactly as the law always does, for you to stop answering to the name of the person who doesn't have it yet. Every time you say, even quietly, even just in your own private thought, I am still waiting, I am still struggling, I am still the one this hasn't happened for, you are re-signing the old name. You are reauthorizing the very delay you're frustrated by. Here is your practice for the coming days, and it is a small one. But do not underestimate small things. Small, repeated corrections are exactly how a life gets rebuilt. Catch every I am that contradicts I am he as it passes through your mind during the day. You will hear it. It usually arrives dressed as an innocent complaint, a joke about your situation, a resigned little sigh. The instant you notice it, drop it. Do not fight it. Do not shame yourself for having said it. Simply let it go and quietly replace it, even just internally, with the words you are learning to live inside of tonight. And there is a third truth here, one that ties the other two together, and it has to do with the conversations no one else can hear. You've been treating the nightly practice, the imagining, the falling asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, as though it were the whole of the work, as though what happens for those few minutes before sleep is the entire determining factor in what your life becomes. But I want to gently correct that, because the technique was never the actual problem. The argument you've been having all day long, in the privacy of your own mind, that is the real ground where your future is being decided. Man attracts what he is, not what he wants, not what he asks for at night. What he is, which is to say, what he has been quietly, habitually assuming about himself in the unwatched hours of an ordinary day. The inner speech is the rehearsal. It is where the world is scripted, long before it ever shows up on the stage of your outer life. I watched this shift happen in Neville in real time, and it did not happen only at night. It happened first in the small, unnoticed moments of the day, the way he used to speak about his poverty, almost defending it, almost making peace with it in a way that quietly reinforced it. And slowly, deliberately, that talk changed. He began speaking even in the smallest asides, as a man already home, not grandly, not performing it for anyone, just quietly assuming it in the tone of his own private thought. Here is your practice for this truth. Choose one sentence, just one, that the man or woman who already has what you want would think casually, without strain, in an ordinary moment of their day. Something small, not, I am wealthy beyond measure, but something closer to the texture of real life. This is simply how things go for me now. And repeat that one sentence to yourself, quietly, throughout your day, until it stops feeling like an affirmation and starts feeling like your default tone, the thing your mind reaches for automatically, the way it used to reach for the complaint. Now let me give you tonight's actual practice, the one movement, done deeply, so you walk away from this not just understanding something, but having done something. Lie down as if the thing is already accomplished, not as if it's coming soon, as if it is finished, the trip already taken, the money already in hand. The person already restored to you, standing in the room, their voice already familiar again. Construct one short scene, small, simple, sensory, that implies the whole thing is true without needing to explain itself. A handshake, a familiar street under your feet, a voice saying the exact words you have been longing to hear. Keep it brief, keep it close. You are not building a movie. You are building a single frame that could only exist in a world where the wish is already fulfilled. Hold that scene gently, and then, as you feel yourself drifting, let it go. Drop the picture entirely, and let only the words remain. I am he. I am he. I am he. Let the words get quieter, looser, until they are barely words at all, until they slur the way your thoughts naturally slur right at the edge of sleep. That slurring is not you losing focus. That is the door opening. Cross that threshold as him, not hoping to be him on the other side of some future morning. Being him tonight as you lose consciousness of the room around you, that is tonight's one movement. And if you want the fuller nightly clearing, the revision that keeps the day from following you through that door and cluttering what you're trying to plant, that is exactly what Rewrite Tonight walks you through. Free, first link in the description. Or comment reset, and I will point you there myself. I want to speak now to the thing that might be rising in you right at this moment, because I promised you earlier I would come back to it. And I keep my promises to the people watching this the way I kept them to Neville. That fear you felt earlier, when I said, I am he, and something in your chest tightened, some old, familiar unease, you likely interpreted that as a sign you weren't ready, that the words were too big for you, too far ahead of where you actually are. I want to correct that gently but firmly, because it is the opposite of the truth. That fear meant you were close. It meant the old self, the identity that has run your inner life for years, the one that has kept you safely inside a smaller story, felt the ground actually shifting under it for the first time in a long while, and it did what every threatened thing does. It made noise. It is not evidence against you. It is the sound of something dying, and nothing that is truly dead can make that much noise on its way out. Neville said, fear is faith in reverse gear. Think about what that actually means. It means the very machinery of belief that could build you a life is the same machinery running backward that builds you a nightmare. It is not a different power, it is the same power, and the fear you feel is proof the power is active in you right now, fully alive, simply pointed the wrong direction for a moment. That is not weakness. That is proximity. You were never further from what you want than the person who feels nothing at all about it. Numbness is distance. Fear, uncomfortable as it is nearness. So if you felt something tighten in you tonight while I spoke these words, let that be a comfort instead of an alarm. You are not far. You are standing right at the door. I want to say something now about the silence that might follow tonight, because there often is a silence, a stretch of days or weeks where nothing visibly moves, and it is in that silence that most people quietly abandon what they started. The silence you have been calling rejection or delay or evidence that it isn't working, I want you to hear what it actually is. It is the subconscious accepting the assumption. That's all silence ever is in this process. Nothing that is already fully yours needs to announce itself in advance. A seed does not make noise underground while it's taking root. The absence of visible movement is not the absence of movement. It is the most private, most essential part of the whole process, happening exactly where you cannot see it, in the one place that actually matters. So do not mistake the quiet for a no. The quiet, more often than not, is a yes, still getting dressed. I want to close by bringing you back to where we started, because I told you at the very beginning that something is coming for you in the next few days. An ordinary disappointment, dressed up as a number, a silence, a person who lets you down. And I want you to remember, when it comes, that I told you about it before it arrived. One day, and I want you to hear this as something already decided, not something merely hoped for. One day very soon, a number is going to land on a screen, or a plan you were counting on is going to fall through, or someone is going to disappoint you in exactly the old familiar way. And you are going to find yourself standing in the exact kind of moment that used to be able to take you apart. and instead you are going to feel only stillness. A quiet you won't even have to manufacture. It will simply already be there, because something in you will have already changed before that moment ever showed up. And in that stillness, I want you to hear my voice again, the way you're hearing it now. You are not becoming him. You are him. Remember that I told you this. Remember that it began on an ordinary night, in the dark, with 3 small words that felt, at first, like a lie, and became, before long, simply the truth you were standing on. There is a reason I am he works even before you fully believe it, and it is the piece almost every teacher gets backward. They will tell you to raise your feeling higher, to work yourself up into some peak of excitement, as though intensity were the whole secret. But the deepest state Neville ever described to me was not a high, excited feeling at all. It was a state of such complete stillness that there was nothing left in it to even want. Next time, I am going to show you that state, the state beyond desire, and why, of everything I have ever taught, it is the fastest door of all.